Well, Mace, we're going to go on to your time on the Thunderbirds. I know you're probably sick to death of talking about it, or maybe not. But can you talk us through the process of how you became a Thunderbird pilot?
Yeah. The Thunderbirds was something that had always intrigued me, but it was one of these things that was really intimidating. I had seen the demo in actually the first time I saw the demo was in pilot training. The Thunderbirds came to Columbus, Mississippi. It was right after graduation. So I was still there. I hadn't moved yet, but I knew I was going to fly F-16s. So I was like, I'm going to go fly that airplane. That in itself is intimidating. And then you watch them fly as fast as they do, as low as they do, as close together as they do. And I was like, that's super cool. But also, like, I could never do that. So for the next 6 years, it's one of those things that gets brought up in conversation occasionally. And I'm always like listening. Like, there were a couple
Yeah, you
people
got
in
your
my
ear
unit
out. Yeah.
who had applied. I would ask them questions. There was one guy I knew that got hired that I deployed with. I would ask him questions, but I never told anyone that it was something I wanted to do. And I think a lot of that was like I had a lot of self doubt about whether I was actually good enough to fly at that level. It's intimidating to watch. So I'm getting to my time in Texas coming to an end. So I'd done 3 years in Japan. I'd done 3 years in Texas. I'm an instructor pilot at this point. I deployed. The summer before that, I had gotten to spend a few months in Poland, flying their F-16s and instructing there. And so my confidence in my skill and stuff had built quite a bit from earlier on. So I see this email that the Thunderbirds are hiring, and it's from Air Force Personnel Center, so AFPC. They send out all sorts of emails from this generic email account with all these different job opportunities.
Right.
I almost never read them. I would usually just delete them because I kind of knew what I was going to do next. So
Yeah.
at that point, I was supposed to leave Texas in, I think, 3 months and go to Holloman Air Force Base in New Mexico, where the F-16 schoolhouse is now, to be an instructor there. So they were already expecting me. I knew what squadron I was going to. Never told my boss in Fort Worth as we talk career planning and goals and all that stuff. I like never mentioned the Thunderbirds. So I see this email. Thunderbirds are hiring. It's like last call, applications due next week. Like they probably already sent out 5 emails over the last 3, 4 months. And I, of course, didn't read them. So I have this moment where I'm like, this sounds exciting. This sounds like something I've always been interested in, but never really told anyone. And if I'm ever going to do it, I feel like I'm actually at the spot where I could do it now. So I read the requirements, I meet all of them, like the hours, the timing, all that stuff. I go to my boss's office and I'm like, so, sir, I saw that the Thunderbirds are hiring. And he's just like, so do you want to apply? And I'm like, I think so. Like, this was not a military movie moment. I did not like knock on his door, walk in and be like, sir, change of plans. I want to apply to the Thunderbirds. Not like
Yeah.
that at all. I was just like,
Right.
I think so. And I actually like to tell this story because I think it's such a cool snapshot of the power you have as a leader, whether it's in the military or on the civilian side. Because again, I'm supposed to leave in just a few months. This application is due like 5 business days from now.
Mm.
I've never mentioned this in all our career planning sessions. He could have very rightfully so been like, hey, Mace, I think you might have missed the boat on this one. Go to Holloman, get settled in there, and why don't you apply next year? Like, I think he would have had every right to do that. Instead, he looked at me and said, I think you would be perfect for this job. What can I do to help you get your application in on time?
Mhm.
Like that, I very much was throwing the responsibility on him to see if he believed in me
Mm.
and was letting him like kind of decide that because
Yeah.
this was an opportunity I was excited about, but I didn't quite have enough belief in myself alone to be like, I 100% should do this. And so
Yeah.
that
So
like
like,
one moment changed
yeah.
everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, let's say you're on like obviously a frontline squadron or in the reserve or whatever. Like, if your boss says no, do you just have to respect that, or you saying like, right, I'm leaving, I'm going to go to the Thunderbirds? Does that like work in any way, like in terms of going to the Thunderbirds?
I think that if your boss said no, it'd be really hard to make it happen. I don't think it
Right.
just like immediately kills it, but you have to get letters of recommendation.
Hmm.
You have to like the Thunderbirds are going to call back to your current commander and like do a like the bro check and just find things. And if they're not behind you and they're not like, yeah, she should apply, like it would kill it pretty quickly.
Yeah, so can you talk us through like I'm guessing you must have had to have an air test like to see if you were good enough in the jet. Like like and if so, like did you have to have like it was a one check ride or was there quite a few?
This is a good question because at that time we did not do a flying portion of the interview at all.
Oh,
It was kind
really?
which is always surprising to people. And the team hadn't done that for quite some time because it was a pretty big lift resource wise to bring out all these applicants and get them
Mm,
dedicated
yeah.
flights. But I think also there's an hour requirement. You have to be an experienced fighter pilot. They look through all your records, so they'll see if you've struggled on any check rides, or they'll do that bro check, calling back to previous squadrons, people that know you. So I think the general mentality was as long as they all this checks out, we can teach them how to do this specific type of flying.
Mm,
But that changed. So I was on the team for 3 years. Normally it's 2 years. I got a bonus year because of COVID.
yeah.
And during that time, that COVID time frame, all our air shows canceled for several months. We end up doing some city flyovers instead, which we can talk about, but we end up with a lot more free time than we normally have. Usually you are just so busy in that assignment that you are like scraping every hour you can get to get the new pilots trained up to be show ready by, like March. And then once air show season starts, you're on the road 240 days a year. It's just one to the next to the next. There is
Mm.
no bandwidth to try to change things. But because COVID opened up some of that, we were able to redo the demo, which had not been redone in a very, very long time. And we were also able to look at the hiring process. And that's when my boss, Brick, decided that we should bring back flying tryouts. And so now the team is doing flying interviews as part of the process for hiring.
So when you like heard of obviously you heard of the Thunderbirds, did you want to come on because you just wanted the flying, or did you want to inspire people as well?
Both. It was for sure both. And it shifted over my time there. I really thought that it was important that all the little girls at an air show see someone that looks like them. And there hadn't been a female flying for the team for about 5 years prior to me. There had been 3 that had flown in the demo previously.
Mhm.
And I just really believe in the whole like see it to be it. Like that can spark such a seed of inspiration for little girls. And so I was like, I'm qualified for all of these things. It's something I've always considered doing. That was a big reason I was motivated to put myself out there and, give it a go to try to get hired. As I was there, you get there and the flying portion is overwhelming at first. You don't
Mm.
even have time to think about like inspiring people for the first 6 months. You're just like, how do I not kill myself in this airplane? Because you're doing crazy
Yeah.
stuff. So the flying becomes all consuming. It's also very fun at different points. As you start to get proficient at it, it becomes fun. At first, it's just very stressful.
Mhm.
Then as the team starts to come together, the flying gets enjoyable. But then fast forward, 3 years is a long time. And I mentioned
Yeah.
like 200 plus days on the road. It is a
Mental.
grind. So that's why it's normally a 2-year assignment, not 3. By year 3, which I didn't expect to have, that was bonus tour, the flying, I would never say it became mundane, but it starts to become repetitive because you're doing
Right.
pretty much the same thing every time. You're still like fighting for getting anywhere close to perfection because it's hard. So you're still
Yeah.
constantly making errors and trying to improve, but the novelty of it goes away, I would say. I was also the left solo, so I had a very, very high G flight profile. So I was pulling 8 plus Gs maybe a couple times every flight. And then I was pulling 6 plus Gs, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 times every flight. And we would fly 10 times a week sometimes.
Wow.
So the wear and tear on my body was really accumulating at that point, and I was dealing with a lot of back pain, like constantly. And that starts to wear on you. And so the flying became less and less fun.
Right.
And what really became my priority, especially by year 3, where I was good at the flying and I felt very settled in, and I also was very beat up physically, those moments of inspiration, like, fully became my why. Like, I loved doing them. And I also felt like I'm an introvert by nature, and so it can be tough for me to put myself out there and have to be like a Disney character essentially, as in this blue
Yeah, of
flight
course,
suit
on the
I was
flight line. Yeah,
on.
yeah.
And that can be exhausting, and I struggled with that the first year, especially because I was still very overwhelmed by learning the flying. And so I was feeling so much stress myself with my own performance that needed to happen, that the constant demand of the public also felt like an additional stressor. But by year 3, I'm much more settled in, I'm much more comfortable. And now I got to kind of enjoy those moments of inspiration that I got to have with people a lot more. So that became my favorite part of the job.
To get a bit nerdy here, obviously, the Thunderbirds they fly with Pratt and Whitney, don't they? Did you feel a difference in power coming from the GE to the Pratt and Whitney going on to the F-16 there?
So I would say because we're flying on the Thunderbirds at such low altitude, like if you're doing a sea level, say you're doing an overwater show,
Mhm.
and you're at sea level 150 feet off the ground, you just have too much thrust. Like there is no
Right.
point where you're like, man, it feels like this engine isn't quite as
I need
strong.
a bit more.
Yeah, like it's just all there. So I never felt like, oh, I wish like this engine's just not as good. I think if you're higher altitude doing BFM, 10,000 plus feet,
Mm.
and you were to do one day go fly in a block 50 and one day go fly in a block 52, like you would notice the difference. But I think just the type of flying we were doing and doing it so close to the surface, it was it was all there. Everything you needed was there.
And of course, you're completely clean as well, like with a shiny polished aircraft.
Yes. Yes, so there's no other squadron that you're going out flying below our low level mins normally
Yeah.
in a clean jet, and the whole flight, all the gas you have is just dedicated to doing aileron rolls and flying inverted and doing a max turn and vertical rolls climbing from 150 feet to 15,000 feet. Like,
Wow.
yeah, so you're getting to explore the whole flight envelope. I think as the left solo, I had a really fun flight profile despite it being very high G, because I got to do vertical rolls, coming in just like 0.95 Mach is what we would target. Um, Spiraling up, probably doing like 6 turns on a good day, hitting 15,000 feet, topping out, looking back at like this white spiral of smoke. We're just like, that's an insane perspective.
Yeah.
Also doing the max turn, which is coming in and, doing essentially it's a minimum
Oh, that,
radius, but
yeah.
you're like 350 knots. You can tap 9 Gs on the front side of that. Actually, a very similar maneuver to the one that got me my call sign. Um, but luckily, I'm not supersonic, or that would be a bad day.
Oh yeah, that would be a bad day.
That.
Yeah.
And then I also did the high alpha. So the 25 AOA, 115 knot minimum in a Viper at 150 feet off the ground. Like, that's just something you would never, ever do with the F-16 in any other setting. So I really, really got to explore the whole flight envelope of the airplane.
So was 25 the max alpha for the F-16?
Yeah, I won't let you go higher than that.
Right. Okay. But you probably maybe you can share a favorite maneuver and maybe a favorite show that you've been to.
Yeah, so the vertical rolls was for sure my favorite, because you just really got to showcase all the things the jet can do. Coming in at say 600 knots, 150 feet off the ground, pulling 8 Gs to square that corner,
Mhm.
unloading the AOA, and then spiraling up 5, 6 times, and then topping out at 15,000 feet AGL, and looking back and being like, I just climbed 15K in like 10 seconds. It was just crazy.
Like obviously we kind of mentioned interacting with the public, and you said like the first year maybe it wasn't such a big thing, but like how did you grow into it, and did you eventually learn to enjoy that?
Sometimes. Yes. Yes. And so
Yes, and yeah.
I think the kids were always really fun. Like,
Right.
they come up with so much excitement and you could just make their day. It's like wide eye wonder. And so those interactions were always fun. Again, I felt like I had more bandwidth for them as I got really settled in.
Right.
I would say, and I don't know that everyone would say this, there were some really weird interactions that were really draining. And I think some of that is unique to being a female in that role.
Oh,
Like,
really?
you would get some very strange people who get really fixated. I had a guy show up to my house.
What?
I had a stalker that went to jail. Uh,
Are you
like,
serious?
I'm all very serious. Yes. So there are some people that are really passionate about aviation. They love airplanes. And I think we know lots of those people, and that's amazing. But there are some that just don't know where the line is boundary
Right.
wise. And especially when they see a woman in that role, they get like this fixation thing happening where they become like a super fan. And it was something I didn't really think about before. Like, I never worried about it beforehand until it
Mhm.
started to happen. And then I was like, how do I keep this from happening? Like, how do I not just, I'm like not really worried someone's going to break into my house in the middle of the night and murder me, but more just like these uncomfortable interactions where people, like, they'll physically just hug you, or
Yeah. And you
they'll,
haven't said like give us a yeah, like, yeah, just there's boundaries
yeah,
here.
there's just like, and it just makes you super uncomfortable. And you feel like
Yeah.
you have to balance this being a public figure and being on and being friendly and being welcoming and not being a jerk with, like, hey, I'm a human that has personal boundaries. You cannot put your arm around me, random stranger. Like, and so
Yeah.
that was tough to navigate, and it was exhausting at times.
Yeah, and could you ever like I don't know because like once you jumped out the jet, did you have to be on straight away? Did they like I don't know Thunderbird one say like right we have to meet the public, or can you say like right I need half an hour break just before? Obviously, you probably had a debrief, or do you have to go straight to the public, the crowd line?
Yep, straight to the autograph line. And so you get
Oh,
out of the jet, you do the ground show, you walk out, everyone salutes in unison.
mhm.
You literally turn and walk to the fence to do the autograph line. And so it, it's one of those things because it is such a cool opportunity to be in that role.
Yeah,
But I think we can acknowledge that and still feel grateful for that opportunity and all the privileged experiences that came with it, and still talk openly about the challenges. And so I would say the autograph line sometimes was really tough, especially if you had a bad flight, right? Like, if you knew you messed something up, or you had a close call where you scared yourself or someone else scared you, you haven't even gotten to talk about it yet with other pilots. And you're just going right to smiling, shaking hands, taking photos. Um, or commonly you like really have to pee and you're like, well, I'm just gonna
yeah,
hold this because we're on the flight line. There's nowhere for me to
yeah.
go. Um, yeah, so it's one of those things where some of my favorite memories were made in the autograph line, and some of the hardest moments I would say were in the autograph line. And you can't really have one without the other, so it's just part of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like probably many of our viewers know you online as a motivational speaker, apart from being on the Thunderbirds. Can you tell us how you got into this, Mace?
Yeah. An unexpected path, I think, for everyone around me. They're like, What are you doing?" And for me as well. So I mentioned I'm introverted, and I kind of had those moments where I was being burned out by being in the public spotlight and the demands of like living up to what the expectations are of the interactions with a Thunderbird pilot. I get better at that by the third year. I planned on going to fly for the airlines. I knew I was going to get out already, and there were a few reasons for that. Again, I was in constant back pain. My body was super beat up, and I was like, I don't think I should go fly 9Gs for another 3 years, 7 years, whatever. Like, there's a certain point where, yeah, that's cool, and getting a 20-year retirement be great, but at what cost? So that was one thing. I also had met my husband my first year on the Thunderbirds. And so we had gotten married. So we're almost married for 3 years, and I've been on the road for 240 days a year. I also have a stepson who at that time was like 6, 7, and 8 years old during those years. And so I no longer want to move every 3 years with no control of that.
Yeah.
And then this is a big piece of it, and this is kind of where the speaking ended up coming in. I really loved the inspiring part of the mission, being able to inspire people and impact them, especially by that third year. And I knew that there were a lot of people that were watching. There were a lot of people that were supporting as I came off of that third year. And I felt like it was kind of the right person at the right time, where there was a window where I could reach a lot of people and have a big impact. And if I went back to a gray squadron, which is great, and we need those people, I just felt like there was something that I was going to be missing. There was like a missed opportunity to really help a lot of people that I wasn't going to be able to take advantage of. So it's kind of like those three things. So I planned on going to the airlines. I was like, I'll do that. Maybe I'll like do motivational, inspirational stuff occasionally, like a speaking thing, or I'll keep doing stuff on social media. The pandemic happens and the airlines are just so up in the air, like no pun intended. No one knows what's going to happen with airlines,
Yeah.
right? Like people are being furloughed, all this stuff. So I'm like, if the airlines wasn't an option, what else could I do? And I knew of a couple other former fighter pilots who had built incredible brands and companies around telling their story, and they're impacting people. And they were also doing well enough to be able to give back. And it just looked really cool. So that was like the seed in the back of my mind. Also, during my first year with the team, I had done an interview for a big YouTube channel, and I thought it was super awkward. I was like fresh out of the jet, mask face. I didn't know I was being interviewed. Like the camera was kind of just like, hey, do you have a second, in the hangar as I'm walking to the briefing room? And they're just like, what is it like? Blah, blah, blah. And I was like very deadpan. I'm like, we just practice a lot. We just work really hard at this one thing, and that makes us good at it. It was like the worst interview ever, I swear.
Right.
Apparently it did really well. And the host reached back out to me like a year later and was like, hey, here's a link. Someone who wrote this article on LinkedIn, and she's a keynote speaker, and she's referencing you in her speech.
Oh,
Like
wow.
she's telling an anecdote about you and humility and stuff from this interview in her own speech. I think there'd be an opportunity for you to be a speaker if you ever wanted to consider that. And at the time I was just like, I'm like so just trying to figure out how to do this job right now. I can't think that far ahead.
Yeah.
Also, I'm an introvert. Like that sounds terrifying. But all those seeds were being planted. We get almost to the end of my third year, and I'm about to do my ATP and start applying to the airlines. And I have to cancel my ATP class, which is like the last rating I need to be able to apply because of a Thunderbird schedule thing. So I'm like, all right, when are we going to do this? A week later, I get a request from a school who wants to hire me as a keynote speaker the following spring. And it's far enough out that it's after I'm leaving the Air Force. So I was like, oh, I could actually say yes to this. So that was like the catalyst that had me look into what I should charge, what I should talk about. What does this industry even look like? Is there a demand? And the more I learned, the more I was like, I could create something really cool here. I could work for myself. I could have full creative license. I could tell stories that have really shaped me in my career that I've never talked about. And I'm not talking about like the cool stuff about flying fast jets. I'm talking about being externally looking like you're at the top of your game and you're crushing all fronts, but on the inside struggling with self-doubt and imposter syndrome and wanting to quit and being so afraid of failing and letting other people down, and try to be a woman in that world and like over prove yourself to like convince everyone you deserve to be there because you're under a microscope. All these things that had controlled my experience for the last decade plus that no one had ever talked about. And so I write this first speech for the school. I do tell my call sign story, but I use it as a catalyst to talk about this path I went down while I was in Japan of really struggling with all those things I just mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
And they loved it. I could see the impact happen. So many of the people in the audience were like, I feel like you wrote that for me. I feel like I saw myself in your story. I thought this was just going to be cool airplanes and Thunderbirds. And you did give us some insight into that. But this is like extremely relatable and so impactful. And it felt really cathartic for me to get on a stage and just be like, yes, that's me standing at attention, that really tight blue suit with my aviators on, looking really cool. But here's a peek behind the curtain.
Yeah.
And I think normalizing all of those human experiences with this like superhero-esque kind of vibe that's associated with getting to the Thunderbirds, it makes people realize that they're capable of a lot more than they think.
Mhm.
It makes them realize that people who they think go and do exceptional things are just like them. They are afraid, they have doubt. The only difference is that they keep taking action despite it. And now I get to do that like 50 times a year, and I see the impact, and I have people follow up with me and say that they've like gone and changed their lives because of it. And it's more rewarding than flying a jet could ever be, honestly. And it's a hard thing for people to understand because it looked like I walked away from a dream job,
Mhm.
but I had done all the things I wanted to do and more. And I honestly feel like I created my dream job. I have never felt so aligned and just inspired and motivated to do the job that I'm doing every day,
Mhm.
because now it's not about me and like worrying if I'm going to mess up and if I'm going to say something weird or if I'm going to mess up that maneuver or what do people think. Now it's about how can I impact everyone else, and it's such a cool feeling.
But yeah, Miss, like I kind of like resonate with that as well because I'm an introvert and I've followed your journey for a long time, and it's just great. Like you, like as you say, like you own your own labor, which I do as well, and you can inspire people, which I think is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I wouldn't go back and change everything or change anything. Like no regrets on leaving 7 years short of a full retirement. I think the only thing that's been difficult of transitioning from active duty to being an entrepreneur, or like the one piece that's specific to having been on active duty, is I lost my community very quickly, right? Like you go from working every day with your best friends, you have all these inside jokes, you have this shared experience, especially on the Thunderbirds. It's a small group, you're together all the time, and then it's over. And
Yeah.
I still live in Vegas, so I still live in the same house I lived in while I was flying for the Thunderbirds.
Oh wow.
All the people that I was on the team with have moved on to new bases, and the current team doesn't want me hanging around. Like they're so busy with their own experience. So it's just like you had all of these super close friends and then they're just gone. And of course, they're still my friends, but they're living all over the country and the world. And it's just been hard to find people who get it, like understand my background,
Yeah.
that are civilians here in Las Vegas.
Yeah, absolutely. But on top of all the amazing stuff you've done, you're also an author. Can you tell us about this and what you have coming up in the works?
Yeah. So I wrote a couple of children's books like right after I got out of active duty. They're behind my head.
Got them? Yeah.
Um, Upside Down Dreams and What's Your Call Sign. So those are kids' picture books. And that was very much a passion project. I worked with a really small publisher. They're about a little girl who wants to be a fighter pilot. So again, it was like that whole see it to be it. I was like, I think a book would be a cool way to do that on a larger scale. So people love those. But there were all of these things that I knew could really impact people that would go beyond a 45-minute keynote, because during that time, I have time to tell my call sign story, to tell a few shorter anecdotes, to kind of give like this broad brush perspective of just the evolution I went through throughout my career to get to the Thunderbirds and then what I'm doing now. But there's so many little experiences that just shaped me and that I taught me so much, and they don't just apply to pilots. And so I was like, I think I need to write a longer book, like a nonfiction, a book for, I always say an adult book. And people are like, you can't say it, you can't call it an adult book. It gives people the wrong idea. So a book for grown-ups, I guess, because I always talk about the kids' books and then they're like, wait. So I ended up getting a publishing deal, was awesome. Um, and the flip side, so this is where I hold my book up, How to Invert Your Perspective and Turn Fear into Your Superpower. It's open for pre-orders right now. It comes out September 9th. Not sure when this episode will air, but hopefully close to around when the book comes out, and people can find it on Amazon, on Barnes and Noble, on Target, like Books a Million, any of the major retailers that have books. It's open for pre-orders. And I like to set ridiculous goals. And I've changed from when I, was intrigued by the Thunderbirds but never told anyone. Now I kind of make it a policy for myself where if there's a goal I really want, I'm going to tell people about it because
Brilliant.
those people show up to help you make it happen.
Yeah.
It also is a great motivator and accountability. So my goal is to be a New York Times bestselling author. Like, I don't want this book in the back corner gathering dust. I want it front and center at Hudson News while you're walking to your gate at the airport. And to do that, I have to sell, 10,000 copies, maybe more. And pre-orders are massively important, but it has been really cool to work on this for 3 years and then finally announce it to the public, to my audience on social media, and just see the support come in has been cool, because nothing's more vulnerable than writing 70,000 words about your whole experience, especially in the military. So yeah, it's a lot of flying stories, but every story is brought back to like the mindsets that got me through that scenario, the lessons I learned. We root a lot of it in human psychology. So there's a lot of studies that I bring in to be like, this is why this mindset works, or this is why this tactic works to help you navigate stress, or choose how you respond rather than react, or create your own luck, or take bold action. And then the end of each chapter are like actionable takeaways that anyone can use, no matter if they're a pilot, they work in an office, they're a stay-at-home mom. Like, it's really just about dealing with discomfort, how you respond to that in a productive way, and just pushing yourself to play at the level that you're capable of.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've got a couple of personal questions just to wrap up this interview, Mace, if you're happy to answer them.
Yeah, let's do it.
Do you have any hobbies?
I do. I love outdoor stuff. I was big into mountaineering and rock climbing before I went to the Thunderbirds. I would like to get back into that now. It's like something I just like occasionally dabble in, which you can't really be good at it if you do it that way.
Right.
I'm on the mend with a lot of injuries from the high G flying for so long. So that's one. Hopefully I'll have like a big mountain objective on my calendar next year once I'm done
Yeah.
launching this book, which feels like a full-time hobby.
Yeah.
Um, I love to work out. I think it's my stress relief. It's the thing that I try to keep consistent even when I'm traveling a ton for speeches. Um, that is, I would say, more than a hobby. It's almost like something I have to do, like brushing my teeth. I love to travel, especially international travel. Just booked a trip to Thailand, which I'm really
Oh,
excited about.
nice.
Yes, I've been once when I lived in Japan. My husband's never been, so I always have to have one of those I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually going away to Malaysia in a month's time, so I'm looking forward to traveling as well.
Have you been to Malaysia?
Yeah, my parents live over there, so
Oh,
that's
okay,
where.
cool.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool. So I'm looking forward to traveling as well. But
Yeah, it's a great
this,
country.
so this probably is. I probably know the answer, but favorite aircraft you've flown?
I mean, I would for sure have to say the F-16. I often get asked, like, what other airplanes would you like to fly? And on my dream sheet in pilot training, I put F-16s first, but I put A-10s second. And
Okay.
I honestly went back and forth for a long time about which one I was going to put first because I really liked the close air support mission. And the big gun is cool, as I'm sure everyone listening agrees. And funny story, my husband was in the Marines, like early 2000s. He was a turret gunner in Fallujah, like crazy experience as a really young enlisted guy. Really loved air support, as you can imagine.
Yeah, fucking mom.
Um,
Yeah.
I meet him on Bumble, the dating app,
Oh, did you
and
really?
yeah, which people I was shocked by. I was like, yes, I was on Bumble. I'm like a Thunderbird pilot, brand new to the team, first 2 months of
You went in your
training.
suit, were you?
No, gosh, no. I didn't put
Your
I put
helmet.
that I was an Air Force pilot
Right.
on my bio because I feel like if you don't put that, you're really setting yourself up for failure, especially as a woman.
Yeah.
Like, people are gonna be like, wait, what? I did not put fighter pilot. There's like a fine line. People being like
Yeah.
so scared off that you don't even ever get the opportunity to talk to them. Um, but he messaged me, and he had been out of the Marines for a long time at that point, and he asked me what I flew in the Air Force, and I told him F-16s, and his second message to me in response to that was, "Oh, I prefer the A-10." And I was like, what the hell? But I was like, okay, I'm intrigued. Like this person has some military background.
Yeah.
They're funny, or at least sort of funny. Those are good. So we went on a date. It was supposed to be an hour for a beer. We were there for like 4 hours.
Awesome. Awesome stuff.
We've been married for 5 years now. So it worked.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. So, Miss, can you just share with our viewers where we can find you online? Do you have a website, Instagram, all that kind of good stuff?
All of the above. I am very findable. Someone made me a Wikipedia page, which should probably check for factual accuracy. Instagram is great.
A10 pilot.
Yeah, right. That's probably what it says. I mean, anyone could go in there and change it. I'm pretty sure. But Mace_Curran on Instagram. And then macecurran.com for my website. There's a pop-up right now for the book, so you'll find that, or macecurran.com/flipside is the book's website. There's a lot of cool bonuses right now available for people that pre-order, just because I'm trying to get pre-orders. So it helps people not wait until mid-September to order. But yeah, I'm also on LinkedIn. I create a ton of content there. It's just my name. I'm easy to find, but I'm all over the place. I create content almost daily. It's a lot.
Yeah, it can be hard work sometimes, can't it, to keep up with all the social media stuff.
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Mace, thanks very much for coming on the show, and everything will be linked in the description below, guys. But yeah, Mace, thank you very much for coming on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. And like I mentioned, I do a lot of interviews, but it's usually for audiences that aren't military or aviation focused. So it was fun today to like try to remember and be like, what engine was I flying then? Who made that? So hopefully I didn't say anything that was completely factually inaccurate. That's happened a couple times on aviation focused shows where I'm like, wow, those penguins have fallen off the iceberg in the last few years.
No, you came across great. So thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.